y'all ready to head off the trails? I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and we're ready to take you on a mysterious journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on the Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel. If you guys haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. We would love to have you. And shout out to Bumblefoot for that amazing intro music once again. I always appreciate that. You guys, please follow us on social media. We got Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. You guys can follow me on my website, thecryptidhuntress.com, where all of my shows, all of my events are posted there. Anyway, y'all need to get in touch with me or find out what I'm doing. It's on my website. Also, I have a YouTube channel. It's called The Cryptid Huntress. And I would love for you guys to subscribe and catch all my live shows over there throughout the week. On Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay, y'all. Also, we have the Spaced Out Radio fan party coming up. That's going to be out in Reno, Nevada, May. I think it's the 10th through the 12th in Reno. You guys please go to the Spaced Out Radio website, spacedoutradio.com, for more information on that. We're having a VIP party. We're broadcasting live. We've got swag bags. We've got some of the biggest, best names in the UFO community and the cryptid community and more. They're going to be there. So I hope to see you guys there. That's going to be a good time. Also, let's see, what do we got? Oh, I'm going to be speaking at the Georgia Bigfoot Conference. That's coming up next month. I think it's March 14th and 15th or 15th and 16th. Sorry, y'all. You have to look at my website. It's posted there. Okay. And me along with Ron Moorhead. Also, Brooks Agnew will be there. I met him at the Journey to Truth Conference last year. And Matthew Delph, the badass monster hunter. We're all going to be there. It's going to be a great time. So I hope to see y'all at that too. Also, we have the Spaced Out Radio's Travelers Club on Patreon if you guys would like to support what we're doing over here. And I have my Patreon, The Cryptid Huntress, as well as my shop, War Woman Goods. Okay, well, that's enough of the business, y'all. We have a fantastic show tonight. I have Charles Andrews in the studio tonight. I have been getting to know Charles. He is one of the most dedicated, boots on the ground, Bigfoot field researchers. He's out of New York. I think him and Long Island Bigfoot, they're going to be good friends once they meet one day. They both do just about the same amount of boots on the ground field research. I myself have been out field researching this past week. My son was out of school for winter break, so we were up in the woods quite a bit this week. And man, it was amazing. I am so recharged. I feel great tonight. So yeah, after this show, don't forget that After Hours has a fantastic program set up for us. So y'all go over there after we're done. Okay, that was long-winded, wasn't it? Okay, let's get to our guest tonight. Charles Andrews is a Bigfoot researcher from the Catskill area of the Catskill Mountains, located in upstate New York, who has a Bigfoot research team called Catskill Mountain Bigfoot. They conduct field research on multiple family groups and areas in which they inhabit. From October 2021 to October 2022, Charles conducted a year of full-time research, minimum of 5 days a week, which allowed him to work many different theories and hypotheses, ultimately obtaining an abundance of knowledge and information pertaining to the Bigfoot species in the Catskill Mountains. And oh my gosh, I cannot wait to talk to Charles tonight, you guys. Please help me welcome to the show, Charles Andrews. Hey, Charles.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Thank you for being here tonight.
Let's do it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. I am so excited to be here. I really had a good time talking to you the past week or so, catching up and learning about your research out there in the Catskill Mountains. You are a very dedicated boots on the ground field researcher, and I can appreciate that big time. And I think you and I have a lot in common. Okay, so tell me tonight a little bit about your research. Tell me how you got into it, and yeah, we're gonna start there. How about that?
All right. Well, the way I got into it was I seen the documentary Discovering Bigfoot, and I thought it was believable and interesting. And my family's from Red Hook, New York, which is in Dutchess County. And Red Hook, New York is an extremely hot spot for Bigfoot. It's like a common thing over there. Not that I was ever interested in it prior to that, but I've heard of it before. There's like a little museum over there. There's a lady that does research over there, and so when I saw the documentary, I was like, I want to try to go do that. So over like a month after I seen the documentary, I did a bunch of research, watching a bunch of different podcasts, interviews with researchers, and I learned signs and symbols and how to read topo maps and qualifications for a habitat. And I made plans to go out for a hike with a buddy of mine. And the night before the hike, it snowed like 8 inches. So we canceled the hike the next morning, but I still went out for a ride. And that morning, I found 18-inch tracks going across the field. It was 8 feet from step to step. The 18-inch tracks were chasing a deer. They ran into a woods line where they ran into a 16-inch track. At that point, there was like a big indentation in the snow, and it was like yellowish green mucus all down in the indentation. At that point, there's no more deer tracks, and the two tracks go down around the field into the creek and up into the ridges in the backside. That same day, my mom goes down the Catskill and she sees what she thinks are tracks on the way down the Catskill. So we go down there and we look, and sure enough, it's again barefoot tracks in the snow. They're not as big as the other tracks. They're more like 5, 9, and 13 inches, but they
Mhm.
are barefoot tracks coming down out the woods, hanging around this old 1800 cemetery, and then going back up this hill into the woods. And we go there and we check the tracks out. And we go up the hill, and at the top of the hill, we find a tree break, a couple tree structures. So we're like psyched, right? And I have pictures and videos of all this on my Facebook group, probably not the YouTube channel. Um, and so I go home that night and I Google Bigfoot sightings in Catskill, New York. And the first thing that comes up is a lady, Miss Williams, that caught a juvenile eating out of her pig's pen. And she calls some researchers. They come over, do some research. They call it inconclusive. But the lady, Miss Williams, is like a mile down the road from where we found the tracks. It's the same patch of woods. So
Wow.
we wait like we wait like 3 weeks for the snow to melt down, and we go back there. And the first day we go back there, we find all kinds of tree structures and tree breaks and tracks, and we're clearly being flanked the whole time, like something's following us through the woods, pretty much the whole time. At one point, we take a little rest down in a gully where there's ridges on both sides of us,
Mhm.
and on both the backside of both of those ridges, we could hear things moving around, and we could hear something moving around. So we moved down a couple hundred yards, and it follows us. And at that point, we were pretty much we were hooked.
You were
We
hooked.
went back.
So it got your
We
adrenaline pumping, I bet, because that's kind of how
Yeah,
I got hooked into it. Was it's
yeah.
just an adrenaline rush, right? And it's like
It's
wow,
scary
yeah,
fun.
you're seeing things that aren't supposed to exist, and you're experiencing things that are not supposed to exist. We're not supposed to have monsters like this. You know, or monster. They're
No,
not monsters. I'm not calling them monsters, but some people do. They don't know what they're dealing with out there. So I'm sure there were so many things going through your head at that point.
yeah, it's definitely scary fun. That's for sure. It's
It's
always
very
scary.
fun.
Right? You're there for them, but it's always scary, right? But it's fun, scary.
It's way better
Um,
than a haunted hayride or something, right? It's like,
yeah,
oh, we're
definitely.
because you just
You
don't know
want to
what you're
have
gonna get.
fun? Yeah, you want to have fun around Halloween? Go on a nighttime Bigfoot expedition in a hot spot.
I know. That's
Um,
why I always tell everybody it's so important to get your mind straight before you go out in the field, because it's not for the faint of heart, and you really need to have your thoughts together, okay? Because when
yeah,
you do experience something that's a little scary like that, or a lot scary, um, you don't want to be that person that's like taking off running and wetting your pants. You know what I mean? So just you got to be prepared for it. You got to be tough, basically.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
definitely.
Yeah.
You gotta be spiritually sound. That's for sure.
Yeah,
That's for
for
sure.
sure. For sure. Well, you actually spent a full year out there, uh, 5 days a week, at least 5 days a week. every week
Yeah.
for a whole year.
Yeah.
How was that? And what did you learn from that?
Well, what I think the coolest thing that I learned is I was able to go to multiple habitats in the same day, right?
Mhm.
Um, and when I did that and I had activity in multiple habitats in the same day, I started getting the drift that, okay, these are really, it's not a family group that's inhabiting all of Catskill, it's multiple different family groups, right?
Mhm.
And then I came up with a way to, because in upstate New York, the tracks are kind of, they're not pretty like you
Mhm.
see on television, right? Um, I came up with a way to measure length and width of the tracks, and I started documenting the tracks, and I started realizing that certain track sizes only stayed in certain areas. They were never over there. They were always here. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And ultimately, I figured out that it's multiple family groups that, if you ask me, live in some sort of community setting. Because if you took a map and you knew where all the family groups were and you circled their habitats, it would ultimately look like a little community of properties, right? And
Mhm.
and I think that is one thing that if you went on the weekends, just the weekends, you would never be able to figure that out. Only way I was able to figure that out was being able to go 5 days a week, constantly, multiple habitats, because it's so far hard to find fresh tracks because you're not going to measure the same track over and over, right? The track's only good for one measurement. You got to constantly be producing fresh tracks to get fresh measurements to make sure that these footsteps, these sized footsteps, are rolling in this habitat and they're not going over there, right? Now,
Right.
I
Well,
don't necessarily think that
mhm.
that is universal across the country. I think the the Bigfoot species here, main food source is the deer, and deer in upstate New York aren't really a migrant species. Like if that buck lives in that woods, that buck kind of lives in that woods, right? Um, they don't like elk is what I'm getting at. If you go over to like the West Coast, like Colorado, their main food source would be elk as far as meat, and elk is a migrant source. So it would make sense that the Sasquatch species over there would be a migrant species following the elk, as opposed to the species here is more stable in one area constantly because their food source stays in that one area constantly. They don't
Yes.
have to
Okay.
migrate.
That is so interesting. Okay, so I was out doing some Bigfooting myself this week, and there's this one field that I keep getting drawn to, and it's an open field that's been plowed. It's on some government property, okay, like a WMA kind of a deal, wildlife management area, and so they plow this field. And every time I go into up to this field, and there's a bunch of these fields all over Georgia, but there's always a ton of deer sign. Okay, deer sign is like deer tracks. Okay, any where they're we actually found a big antler. Okay, it wasn't gigantic; it was like a three-pointer, but it was still pretty big, just laying on the ground there. But there, it's just covered in deer sign. Okay, and that includes poop, y'all. Okay, and all that kind of stuff. So you can tell like with where if that's how you tell like if they're deer, if they're does, or if they're bucks by that. Okay, but I figured if there's any place that we're going to find some tracks, it's going to be in that field. Okay, Bigfoot tracks, because that is a perfect place for all the deers to go. It's a food source. The only thing we ended up finding, by the way, was just that antler. But that's a great place to go. I think that's a good bit of advice for people who want to go Bigfooting and want a good place to go to a place that has a lot of deer tracks. You know, somewhere that has a lot of resources for the Bigfoots to eat. Right? Wouldn't you say the
Yeah, the
same?
way I'm able to produce constant tracks is I know I've put eyes on every single inch of the habitats, right? So I
Uh-huh.
know there's certain areas of the habitats that are going to have softer ground when it rains, or maybe softer ground all the time, and you got to check those areas constantly.
Hmm.
You got to know every inch of your habitat. You got to know what areas are going to even take a track when they come across it, and then you have to constantly check those areas for the tracks, right?
Oh
Because
yeah,
in like we
for
talked
sure.
about, the mountains are the same here and where you're at, right? It's the
Hmm.
same stretch of mountains.
It's the
It,
Appalachians, all the way from New York down. We're in Georgia. Yes, in
yeah,
Alabama, that
it's
area.
all rock. It's all rock. It's
Mhm.
not soft soil, right? It's not sandy. It's all rock, right? So you got to find the areas in your habitat that are going to be susceptible to tracks they're going to leave a track. You got to constantly go back and check that area, look for the tracks around a swamp, around a lake, around a creek bed, maybe a little runoff creek that only happens when it rains, that comes down through the woods off a ridge. Anywhere that gets moist, soft ground, you got to know it, and you got to go back constantly and keep checking, and the tracks will be there if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah. I had read, I follow you and I'm part of your Facebook group, Catskill Mountain Bigfoot. And you put some fantastic videos out there. It's super impressive. But I remember you making a post talking about the black bear population. You were saying that you believe that some of the Bigfoot families and the groups up there outnumber the black bear population. There's a lot of black bear up in New York, from what I understand. Um,
I believe that if you took a map out and you drew a line at the Hudson River, right? We're talking about Catskill, New York. So if you
mhm.
took a map out of Catskill, New York, and you drew a line at the shoreline of the Hudson River, and then there's Route 23 that goes from Catskill to Palinville. You drew a line just off that Route 23, and then you got Route 23 that goes from Catskill to Cairo. You drew a line there, and then you connected that line. I just made you a box, right? I can tell you without a doubt, in that box, there is easily an equal amount of Bigfoot to black bear, but I believe it exceeds because I'm researching the foothills of the Catskill Mountains. So I'm researching significant sized patches of woods that have the qualifications for a habitat, right? So while I'm in there in those patches of woods looking for Bigfoot signs, what else do I see? I see the bears and I see the bear tracks and I see the bear signs. So I get an idea of how many bears are in this patch of woods. And I get from taking length and width on the tracks, I have an idea of the size of the family unit that lives in that woods. In the family unit, even if it's by one, always outnumbers the bears. So if that happens in each habitat, what do you got? More Bigfoot than bear, right?
Yeah. Okay, how many members of each family or group do you think there are? Are these big groups, big
No.
families, or are there like five or
Mm,
six or three or four?
yeah, yeah.
What do you think?
Ranging from, for what I've counted, ranging from 3 to 7. 7 being the largest, 3 being the smallest. And it is what I think personally, right? This might be a little bit out there, but we're not talking about animals. Let's just get that straight, right? We're talking about people, right? And
Hmm.
people that have a level of discipline that us people could never even begin to understand, right? So we're not talking about a stupid person or anything like that. We're talking about an extremely disciplined, intelligent person of the woods, right? So let's get that straight. So I believe that they live in a community setting, right? Um, where I used to live, they used to come up on the creek bank all spring, summer, and fall. Sometimes there would be more individuals on the creek bank than there is in any family group. Then I learned, you know what? You almost never see Big Daddy, right? You always see juveniles.
Yes.
Big Daddy would probably never be on the creek bank, neither would Mama. It's probably all the juveniles from the local family groups, right? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
from the
it's
local.
those it's all those juveniles that like to come out and mess with us and smack us from behind and things like that when we're out there, when we're not paying attention and throwing rocks and stuff. I think that a lot of that is juvenile activity, coming from my experience.
Yeah, well, so now the habitat that they inhabit, right? You would imagine that that family group probably inhabited that land for hundreds of years, right? Okay, but it would have to hand down, I don't know, maybe to the eldest child, right? Because it would have to hand down. Eventually, the parents would die, and the land wouldn't just come open. You would think it would hand down to a child, right? They're inheriting land like we inherit land, but the other siblings would have to go off and start their own family group in their own patch of woods. And when you come across the 3 member, that's a new family. That is a young new family. that has recently inhabited this batch of woods. They only got one kid, right? New family. It's not a full family. Full family,
Yeah.
you got two adults. I would say four children, right?
Wow.
That's what I think, right? And
Okay.
that's sick. And
Okay.
I
I have a
and one of the
question.
family groups is seven.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, okay. I have a quick question because I was thinking about this. My friend David Pardue up in North Carolina. He's a dedicated boots on the ground field researcher too. He goes out with our. He's part of my team, and he's up there. He has a lot of he comes across a lot of stick structures and like trees that have been twisted time and time again, just like huge trees that are twisted and twisted and twisted and stuff. But there's some of these stick structures that he comes across, and they're very what do you want to call it? It's like not intricate or anything. It's just kind of plain, like some sticks up against a tree. And to him, he's been going out there long enough. He knows these Bigfoot families that are out there, and he says that he believes that those sticks are indications of how many Bigfoot are in that area. So like they put like a number there to like notify this is how many of us are here and stuff. So do you come across stuff like that out in your area that you research?
You know, the biggest tree structure that I run into is triangles. You could say it looks like a triangle. You might say it looks like an A, right? The star structures, I don't run into them all the time, and I've never found a structure that the number of sticks directly correlated with the number of individuals in the family group, right?
Okay.
I guess other than the three-member group in the triangle is three sticks, but I never added that up like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's good. I have no idea what the stick structures mean. I just know that they do them.
I know, right?
I know if
Yeah,
you're in upstate
I've
New
been
York,
coming across
you're
a
gonna put
lot of like
triangles.
tree bends and tree
Yeah.
arches and stuff. And
Well,
you know, it's weird.
yeah,
It's like I want to. Okay, so like I've been taught that you don't just automatically think of it as being a Bigfoot structure, right? Because you can never underestimate the power of a drunk camper or something, or just anybody that's bored or something, or somebody that's trying to like trick you or something. If they know where your research area is. But these things are so massive, and they look small, but like when you're there in person, it's like this 30-foot tall tree. It's bent over and it's like 12 feet up in the air where that arch is. And then it's tied together with other sticks from other trees that aren't even around the area, different
yeah,
types of trees and stuff where those sticks come from. So it's a little confusing, but it's also fantastic because I think that it absolutely could be a Bigfoot made structure. And now, is that kind of where your head is too? Like, do you think that it could be like
well,
humans
with
out
the
there making some of
structures,
this, or is that Bigfoot?
this is a good way to look at it. It's never just the arch or the structure, right? It's everything in conjunction with one another, right? So that arch, that structure, and that track all validate one another. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yes.
if you're somewhere and that track, that arch, and that structure all validate one another, the arch by itself might not be nothing spectacular, but when you take the arch and you put it with the structure and the track, it starts validating one another. That's one thing. Another thing is 6 out of 10 times, right? And I don't care what anybody says. 6 out of 10 times, the tree structures, the tree breaks, or the stick manipulations, or the tree manipulations are in manners that no human can do it. No human can do it. The humans can't rip living trees off stumps and pick them up and put them places. Even a dead tree, a small dead tree is very heavy. You ain't picking it
Yeah.
up, right?
Tell
Like
me. Yeah.
6 out of 10 times, maybe even more. I'm trying to be conservative, right?
Wood's
Uh,
heavy. Wood is so heavy. Like if you
More
even
times
to
than
like
not,
chop wood, it's heavy, man.
yeah.
It
And,
totally
and
is.
even like I told you, I was out the other day and I took a couple videos of a couple structures, and one was so simple, but if it was two live trees that were teepeed and a real old stick that was bent up and leaned on top of it, right?
Mhm.
If any human tried to do that, they break the stick. There's only one stick. You only got one shot. They break the stick. They're not bending the wood, right? We're not able to bend wood. Somehow they are able to bend wood. And the other structure, the top branch that was going through it was woven through, right? We try to do that. We break every branch on the stick trying to do that, right? If we don't do that and not break no branches and it looks pristine, doesn't happen like that. It's just one of those sayings that mainstream media and mainstream science utilize to discredit the Bigfoot universe. It's one of
That's
so many of the things that people say drive me nuts, and just a little bit of logic and really looking at it, and you see that it really you're not mistaking a Bigfoot track for a bear track. It's not happening, and I don't know. I just I'm not even like an avid woodsman. I'm not mistaking the two. You're not going to mistake your foot track for a bear track, are you? You're going to go out, step in the sand, and say, "Wow, that looks like a bear track."
yes.
No,
No,
right?
no. Exactly.
No,
Well,
come on.
that's why it's so important for people who are out in the field to like really know your animals. Okay, know the animals that are native to the area. I mean, we came across this gigantic bird track. It was like huge. It was the same size as my hand. I have like gigantic hands for a woman. Okay, I got big hands. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. That footprint was like that. The bird track, it was so large. I was like, okay, it had to have been a buzzard or something, but it was in the middle of the woods on this back road, like under a tree canopy. It was just really odd that this would have been there. And we found that the day before. I guess that was yesterday, actually. Um, but it's important to know. And I was like, man, I wish I knew all the birds that were out here. I went
You
home.
know
I
the
forgot to do my
bird.
research. But nonetheless, it's important to know all the animals and to know what their tracks, their footprints look like before you go out there and do your
Yeah,
bigfooting and stuff.
yeah. Remember what I told you earlier? If you're gonna go and do Bigfoot research and you're gonna research Bigfoot habitats, one of the most important things to do is to research not Bigfoot habitats, right?
Yeah.
You find this place that you know is definitely not, there's nothing, no Bigfoot living there, and go research that batch of woods and see exactly what a natural batch of woods looks like with no Bigfoot species manipulation, right? Get a good idea
Yes.
of what it looks like. Go to a couple places, get a good idea of what it looks like. Then when you go and you start going into a habitat, you have a better idea of things. Don't
Yes.
listen, don't listen to people.
That's
Just
right.
know
Well,
what you
because a
know and
lot
do
of
what you
things that
do.
we're going to see are like debris huts that survivalists make and things like that too. But I have a question for you. So when the Bigfoots are, I'm going to say go to sleep. Okay, like when the Bigfoots are resting, where do you think they go? Because I know you have explored. You have some caves in your area where you live, and a lot of people think that Bigfoots retire to the caves during the day or the night whenever they're sleeping.
I don't
What do
think
you think
so.
about that?
I think that they just wherever is good for them at that moment. I think that the okay, so they're extremely disciplined, right? And their whole they got to be able to evade humans, right, at all costs. Okay, uh, I doubt that they're gonna all bundle into a cave unless it has multiple exits, right? Uh, I think that they literally just right out in the open. They find a nice thick pine needle bed, and that's where they sleep. The family group rests there during the day, while the day watchers watch out and make sure nobody's coming through, so they can rest. And they definitely use caves because the one cave that I researched the most, they get real antsy every time you go near it. And they broke trees down in front of it to hide it from people being able to see it that are walking up or down the creek, right? They broke big trees down in front of the cave so you can't see it no more from the creek. Um, but I don't think that the cave is like their home. I think they utilize it, but I don't think it's their home.
So they utilize it. They could be using them as tunnel systems and stuff. Spin being Elsa. Um, she says here in OZ. What is OZ? Where I don't know. In
Oz,
Oz. In Oz.
the land of Oz,
Yes. Okay.
Wizard of
Um,
Oz.
I know. We're just gonna say
We're gonna
Oz.
say
Okay,
that.
maybe it's Ozarks. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, they know their way through mountains and tunnels to the other side of the other mountains and stuff. And my
Yeah.
gosh, we have so many caverns and caves, and there are like tunnel systems, with these mountains. I mean, there's probably some kind of tunnel
Yeah.
that goes from your house to my house down here. Okay, through the Appalachians.
Growing up, I had a buddy. right? I had a buddy, his name is Scott, growing up, right? And he
Hmm.
used there's a cave system that goes from Jefferson Heights in Catskill across to the other side of Catskill where Porterskill Road would be.
That's
If you
right.
pulled up a map and look at it, it's a long cave.
Hmm.
And he used to go down there all the time. He used to bring people. They used to go out partying, get drunk, and then go hiking through the caves, climbing, crawling through the caves, I guess you
Oh
should.
God, no.
I've never
That
been
is
into
so
that.
dangerous.
I
No,
don't like
I'm not a
climbing
huge
anything.
fan. I'm not a fan of caves. Okay. Charles, I have investigated one cave, and that was in Tennessee, and I've talked about it so daggum much. It was rather scary, actually. It was almost like walking into a whole new realm as soon as you went down into this cave. And yes, of course, we were told there was skinwalker activity and stuff, but there was Bigfoot activity, dogman activity on the property. All this stuff was going on there. But we got inside this cave, and the whole ground. I remember all of us. It was me and a bunch of guys, and our friend Farah who lives there. We all had on our boots, our hiking boots. I had on my muck boots. And as you walked in that cave, it was so thick, full of mud. There was no way we would not have seen tracks of a Bigfoot in that cave. However, there were no tracks. There were no footprints. There was nothing in there in that cave. So it led us to, but the chicken feathers from the missing chickens were all like the feathers were leading into that cave. But once you got in there, they disappeared, which led us to believe, okay, well, either the Bigfoot was, if there was a Bigfoot taking the chickens, it was either climbing on the walls and going up into the caverns or something, or maybe it went through a portal. I don't know. It was
I always
mind-boggling,
thought that about the
honestly.
caves. I don't mess. I will not go in the cave. I have a buddy that does some research with me. His name is Rob, and he always wants to go in the caves. And the cave that was behind my house, the one that you see in the picture of, he always wants to go in that cave. And I'm always telling him like, dude, this is in my backyard. If we go in their house, they're gonna come in my house, and I don't like the idea of that. So
Right.
now I don't live there. I'm a little bit looser. I might let him go. Yep, there it is. That's the cave.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that looks like a fun place. I mean, it'd be a great place to, you know, bug out and stuff if you had to. Um, However, you just don't know what's in there. Okay, you don't know what's in there. Do you think that the Bigfoots could be utilizing that cave potentially? That one
The
cave right there?
babies could be utilizing it. I they could be the babies could be shimmying up in there, right?
Okay. Yes,
Uh,
for sure.
there's something important about it. They get real antsy when you go near it, and they're trying to hide it. So there's something about it.
Wow.
Chances are, any human answer we give to it is probably not going to be correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at these pictures. I actually have several pictures uploaded here that you sent me, and some of them are posted on your Facebook group. And there's some that are really cool, and I would love to show the audience some of these if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's
Okay.
check them out.
Let me take the comments down so we can see them.
To tell you what's
Uh,
going on.
there's this. I believe it's this one. I want to show the audience the one. It looks like a Bigfoot peeking around a tree or something here. Let's see if I can find it. Is it this one? Yeah, that. Tell me about this picture. What's going on here?
That was, I think, like my eighth sighting. Yeah, yeah. That's more closer to the original. It's not so cropped up.
Mhm.
Um, That one, I knew that they were following me all the way out the woods. Yeah, that's back a little bit further. Now you could really get a better idea. I can't see the top on here. Maybe everyone else can. Um, but that one you could get a better idea of how big the head was compared to the trees and everything next to it. I knew that they were following me all the way out practically to the road when I was leaving the habitat. A couple weeks earlier, couple weeks before that, me and my nephew were out there hiking, and the whole time we were out there, like normally you get like one or two sticks thrown at you in like 4 hours, and on this day the sticks were coming like every 20 minutes, and and on the way out we saw like a concrete colored Bigfoot behind a tree. I got a picture of that as well. Um, and when I seen that one, I knew that they were following me out. So that day, I could hear that one following me. So I knew it was gonna follow me to that bank, right? That creek bank.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the one I got with my son, taking a walk with my son. I could whistle. You see, that's a good one. You see the nose?
I
You can
see.
see
I
the eyes,
do.
you see the nose.
Yeah.
That one's kind of freaky.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. If you look at the original, that head is about the size of my head. So if you want to put it in context as to how big that would be, yeah, that would be like me peeking around the tree.
Oh
But the
yeah.
other picture, I knew they were following me out, and I knew that would follow me to that creek bank. But I don't really, yeah, that one. I don't really know how to use the camera that great, so I use auto zoom still. And in the amount of time it takes my camera to focus, they're moving from wherever I caught a glimpse of them, or I thought that they were, right? They're hiding before my camera's focusing. Zip, 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 click, click, right? They're gone
Right.
before the click, click came. So that time I was down in that gully and I turned around and propped my butt up against the wall of the other side of the gully and I hit and I started zooming the camera before I even turned around. Luckily, the camera did actually focus, zoom, and caught it. And I saw it for maybe 3 to 5 seconds afterwards before it actually moved and wasn't there no more. If you
Wow.
look real close, one thing I want to say about any pictures that you show on these,
Uh-huh.
uh, chances are, like me, when they take the pictures, you're taking them in 1080p. And the moment that you put them on Facebook or something like that, I think it's 740 it goes down to. So in all reality, the original
Oh,
pictures,
really?
yeah, it pixelates them. It drops. I'm taking them with my camera in 1080. The original is 1080. That's 740. The moment
Wow.
that you load something on Facebook, it drops it to 740p.
Okay, that's important to actually point out, Charles. Okay, because a lot of people have, whenever we're out there, like people, if you fumble around and get your camera in time to actually get a picture of one of these things, a lot of times they're blurry. Okay, a lot of blurry pictures of cryptids, and and maybe they're just moving or whatever, but it's almost like they have the ability to blur out their image too, and to when
Yeah,
you're
I think
uploading
so.
it to have it go down into the pixelation, that's really odd, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Also, you got to think a sighting's what, 3 to 5 seconds long? One,
Hmm.
two, three, done. Right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. Right? Did you
Hmm.
get your camera out, take a really good picture with that? Probably not.
No.
And if you're catching them in motion,
Right.
they're so fast. Can your camera really focus on something moving that fast? You got the picture of the little gray guy running?
Let's see. I'm
Little gray
not
guy
sure.
running?
I'm not sure if I do or not. Let's see. I do.
Yeah, the
Okay, I
rock
have
right
this one.
behind
This
him.
one's kind of cool because I could see the.
That's
I think
that's
you.
a good example of cloaking.
Yeah, the
Look,
cloaking. There's a face in the middle of that picture that I could see.
yeah, that's a
So,
really good. Now, if you look down in the bottom left corner, there's one not cloaking. You can see its teeth. You see that?
I mean, I see the one in the middle. Wait, hold on. Right here. There's one like right there. There's a face in the middle of that
Yeah,
picture,
yeah,
and
that's a
that's
really
what
good
I see.
example of cloaking.
I was so taken aback by
Go
that
to
right
the
there. I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah.
bottom left side of the picture.
Okay. Is that my side where I am? Down there?
Yeah, right
I
down
can't
there.
tell.
Just
Everything's
went to it.
backwards over here, y'all.
You,
Yeah,
you know what I
that's really
do, and
cool.
this is a good advice for anybody that's going to do the research. Get yourself a good magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Everything that I look at with a magnifying glass.
Yes.
All my
Okay.
pictures, when I go through them and I look with the magnifying glass.
The older I get, the more I have to use a magnifying glass. And I am not lying. That's for sure, especially when I'm trying to bake or make food. Okay. This is a really cool picture too. Okay. There was some eye
Yeah,
shine in this picture. I can't see it from my
no, that's
computer
not
right
the eye
now, but
shine one.
uh-huh.
That's not the eye shine one.
Oh,
That
that's
one
not?
is if you look right to the right side of the tree, you'll see an individual standing there. You can see the black for where the eyes. Once you get a bead on the
Oh,
eyes, you can see the nose, the face, and actually the head down to the shoulder is actually kind of highlighted.
oh, very cool. Very cool. I thought that was I see I can't see on my computer and on my phone right now. So
The
that's
one with
really
the eye
cool though.
shine, the other thing is actually an orb.
Oh, an orb. Okay, tell me about orbs. What is your experience with orbs and Bigfoots out in the field?
They definitely they come together. When they would come up on the creek on the tree line on the creek, one of the ways that I would know that they're there, which there was a couple of different ways, but one of the ways was there'd be orbs flying all around. I've got videos of up to 10 orbs flying all around. They're coming at me. They're like going through me and stuff. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we that's like a constant that we have out in the field. We always have a lot of orb activity, and it has to do with any kind of, I mean, it's kind of with any kind of paranormal activity that we have out there, but particularly Bigfoot. Um, and I mean, I've seen orbs that flash through the woods, and then you hear like a growl and a huff that wasn't
I
a
think
bear.
I think that the orbs are some sort of energy source. I know this much. The orbs definitely run hand in hand with the Bigfoot. When the Bigfoot would come, the orbs would be there. When the Bigfoot wasn't there, no orbs, right? So they
Yes.
definitely together. Um, I think that maybe they might be able to put themselves. Maybe that orb is their spiritual energy that you're seeing. Maybe that's one
Hmm.
of the ways that they're able to do all the crazy stuff that they're able to do. I don't know. It definitely has something to do with them. Definitely has something to do with them.
I think
I
so
don't know what
too.
it is though.
Well, it kind of makes me wonder, like, what if these things were able to shapeshift or something? I've never seen it. I can't say that they do, but you're trying to like wrap your head around everything that's going on out there. And once you've been doing it as long as you and I have been in this game for a while, I know you've been out there researching for quite a while. And after you're out in the woods as much as you've been, you start trying to make, you kind of start making these connections like, well, what if this is
Yeah,
a shapeshifter? And there's other cryptids out in those woods too. It's not just
yeah.
Bigfoot.
No.
You have something that's pretty famous out there as well. Not to get off the Bigfoot topic, but maybe we will just for a second. You have something that's one of my favorite topics: little people, gnomes. And there's a famous case. It's actually from a book. Okay, and I believe that was Washington Irvin wrote a book called Rip Van Winkle. And tell
Yeah.
me the connection to your area in Rip Van Winkle, and we'll get into that story briefly tonight.
Well, Luke Van Winkle was a Catskillian like myself.
Okay.
We're actually from the same town. He lived in the Kiskaton, Palinville area, and he was a farmer. And one day he hiked up into the mountains, and he encountered little people, and he took a drink from them, and fell asleep for 70 years. There he is. That's a real cartoony Rip Van Winkle. That's not the Rip I know. There
Yeah.
you go. That's more Rippish. When you drive into Palinville, it says Palinville, the home of Rip Van Winkle. I can actually see Rip's Rock from my front yard.
Really?
I go right out of my porch and I can see Rip's Rock from my house. Um, now, so you got Rip Van Winkle. Now you also have Henry Hudson, that the Hudson River was named after.
Hmm.
He docked in Catskill and he hiked up to Catskill Falls. And when he got up to Catskill Falls, he encountered little people, and they started offering him and his men drinks. And the men that took the drinks first started passing out into like a coma. And Henry Hudson got the rest of his men together and got up out of there. Um, the Catskill Falls, where Henry Hudson wrote about in his journal, and Rip's Rock, where Rip Van Winkle supposedly fell asleep, are really they're maybe a mile away from each other, and I think they're at basically the same elevation. They're on the same area of mountain. They're probably a mile away from each other at the same elevation. It's ironic. Also, the Catskill Mountains, pretty much all through the 1900s, it was a big resort area, and in the Catskill and Caro area, there was all these little resort, not no more, but there used to be all these little resorts.
Hmm.
And if you go back and you look at all the vintage memorabilia, it's all little people themed. Every last bit of it. Either fairies, gnomes, puck wedgies, or native little people, one or another. Also, uh, the the indigenous people in this area were Mohegans, right?
Hmm.
The Mohegans, Native Americans lived here. They called the native little people whippoorwills because of their usage of the whippoorwillow. And the local campground in Cairo is called Whippoorwill Campsite, named after the indigenous little people of the Catskill Mountains.
No
A lot
way.
of little people history. But like I
I
said,
mean,
if I knew where there was little people, I would not go back.
okay. Okay, you told me that before the show started tonight. Okay, so we were kind of joking around before we went live tonight about how uh you are actually more worried about the little people than you would be the Sasquatch and the Bigfoots out there.
Yeah,
Because they're just
definitely.
mischievous and it's
Hmm.
almost like
At the
unpredictable. And
very
I'm not
least,
saying
they're
Sasquatch is
dangerously
predictable.
mischievous.
Yeah.
At the very
I
least. And I'm not trying to be the next guy to fall asleep for 70 years.
I know. Okay, so the story behind that is this: the Rip Van Winkle, his wife was being a little bit naggy. She was not being very nice, and she was fussing at him. I don't know. Maybe he had a drinking problem. I don't. Sounds like it. Okay, but he and his dog went for a walk to go out into the mountains, up to where that area is, right by where you research and stuff. And he met a man that had a keg of beer or some kind of intoxicating substance, and him and his dog, and I think they were met by, apparently it was a bunch of little people like gnomes. They didn't say that in some of the stories. They just say it was men wearing Dutch outfits, is what it said. But yeah, he ended up drinking this liquid, and he woke up. What you said, 20 years later? How many years later,
70,
Charles?
70 years later.
70. Good gosh, 70
Yeah,
years
that's a
later with
long
a
time.
long beard.
Yeah.
He had been. It makes me wonder, like, if this was based on a true story, well, which I'm learning a lot of mythological stories, I think might have actually been real to some extent. Some of them.
Yeah, yeah. There was probably some sort of real part of the story, and it probably grew over the years. Maybe he just went up there and saw little people and left his wife because she was annoying and dipped off and didn't come back. 70 years later, he popped back up like, hey, I fell asleep on the mountain.
He was living his best life with the gnomes, is what he was doing. Probably.
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah, yeah.
Who knows? Just kidding. That's
Yeah.
terrible.
I mean, it
Yeah,
would
that's
be obviously cool to see a little person, right? Obviously, that would be cool, right? I'm a cryptid researcher, so, but man, just I do a lot of studying, and through that studying, almost all Native American cultures say if you encounter a Sasquatch, don't disrespect it, don't bother it, it won't bother you. If you encounter little people, apologize for ever being there and get up out of there immediately. And
mhm.
it's almost universal throughout all Native American legend, right? And I just think that they're dangerous. And I don't know. Maybe if I were to pick, right, I would say maybe the little native ones wouldn't be so scary, but like a puck wedgie or a gnome or a fairy would probably really bug me out. I would probably go running right on down the mountain.
I'm with you. I'd rather see a Bigfoot, I think. I think I
Yeah.
would. I have not
Bigfoot's a
yet
big
seen one, but
person.
yeah, I don't know. Well, okay, it kind of okay, let's put this out there. If that were based on a true story of some sort, or at least part of it, I mean, could that guy have like walked through a portal? I mean, we've got the missing, okay, he's missing time of decades, almost a century of missing time there. Okay, that's 77 decades missing. And I mean, we talk about time edits, time jumps, time loops, time travel. Okay, we talk about all that stuff and portals.
Something definitely happened. That's my belief. Something definitely happened, right? Probably not the whole story that you get today,
Hmm.
but somewhere in there was the beginning of the story. Something definitely happened. You probably encountered little people. It probably started off as Rip Van Winkle, the crazy man that says there's little people up in the woods, and it probably grew from there, something along those lines, right? That's how it goes. That's how history goes.
It's exactly. Well, I think there's a little bit of truth in a lot of these mythological
Hmm.
tales that we're told, and also there's a
Yeah,
lesson in it. And I guess the lesson is don't go drinking with the gnomies. Okay, or I don't know,
never. Don't ever
with
accept
your
a drink from
homies,
little
with the
people.
gnomies. Yeah, chilling with my gnomies. Don't go drinking with the gnomies. Okay.
Never.
Yeah, that's great, but it's right there, in the middle of all this. And I only thought there's people in the chat saying I just thought that was a tall tale. Well, me too. But a lot of these things that we're studying now seems as though they got some truth behind them. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Well, I mean, if you look at Disney, right? If you look at
Hmm.
Disney and you look at a lot of their movies, um, it's you start doing cryptid research, right? Bigfoot is a cryptid. It's impossible to not end up at another cryptid, such as little people or dogmen or one or the other, right? Or other things, right? Giants, mountain giants, right? It's hard to not end up at one of these other things. And it's always a cartoon, right? A cartoon about a giant, a cartoon about an Igor, a cartoon about fairies, Fern Gully. I'm starting to believe Fern Gully is a real thing, right? Like my sister used to watch that growing up, Fern Gully, and there probably is whole little villages that exist in the the bush out back,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Right. That Fern Gully. In the fairies, right? Tinkerbell. What's Tinkerbell? A fairy, right? Little did we know fairies
Yes.
are dangerous,
Yeah. Just
dangerously
slightly.
mischievous.
Yeah, well, even like Moana, they've got that. You and I both have kids, so that's why we know these movies. Okay, we know these Disney movies, and so even in Moana, they've got like the sleeping woman who's like an island. And now today, like I'm doing all this research and stuff on these sleeping titans. Okay, like the mountains might have been people back in the day, so it's almost like they're showing that in the movie. Foxy Joe, thank you so much for that super sticker. We appreciate you here at Space Out Radio. Thank you for that.
I want to
Um,
start researching like up in the mountains more. Uh, y- it's such a hike. It's hard to go on a 10-mile hike to do research when you can go on a 10-minute hike and do research, right?
yes.
Um, but I'm sure there's just absolutely amazing stuff up in those mountains. Like I was saying before, the Catskill Mountains is a huge mountain range, right? Huge. And I've gotten reports of thunderbirds, right? I've gotten two reports of thunderbirds.
Really?
I get at least one Bigfoot report a month through my Facebook group. I've gotten one Dogman report, right? You, it's I don't doubt what anybody says. I mean, I see Bigfoot. They come and visit me,
Mhm.
right, at my house. I don't
Yeah,
doubt what anybody says anymore. If somebody says
exactly.
they saw a Thunderbird, I believe they said it was more down towards like Montauk or whatever, down towards that way, right? Where the hell do they live?
That's where I did some Bigfoot research with Long Island
Yeah,
Bigfoot. Mike is in the chat. By the way, he said y'all are going to have to do some research together. I was up there with him and a bunch of people that were actually Montauk survivors from that program. But him, okay, so Long Island Bigfoot Mike and Brian from Montauk is Strange on YouTube and Michael Roser from Dark Hour Paranormal. We were up there doing some Bigfooting together. And there are Bigfoots on Long Island, New York.
I
Absolutely.
wouldn't doubt it.
So
I wouldn't
super
doubt it.
lush area.
My
Yeah.
mom moved to Kingston, right? We all had to move from where we were living, and my mom ended up moving to Kingston, and Kingston's like a little city, and she lives like right off the river in Kingston. And where she lives, if you go 3 blocks over, it's woods and ridges, and right, she lives right off the river, like 3 blocks from the woods and stuff. And she swore to God that she heard whoops the other night, like heard what she thought was whoops coming from that away where the woods be. And I don't doubt it because they really my mom had like this crazy relationship with them. And they probably are searching her out over there, whatever group is over there. I think that you become imprinted. Imprinted, I guess, is just that's the way I used to explain it. If you ever watched the Twilight series, right? You ever
Hmm.
watched Twilight series?
Oh yeah. Team was it Jacob?
Jacob, you know how the werewolves imprint, right?
Y'all
Imprint
know
on
I'm
somebody.
Team Jacob. Isn't that the werewolf? Yeah, I like
I think
him.
that the
Yes.
Bigfoot imprint on you. I think the
Oh yeah.
Bigfoot imprint on you. Yeah, yeah. I think they imprint on you, and then I think all Bigfoot can see it. It's weird. It's like once you become habituated with a Bigfoot or a Bigfoot group, you can go anywhere, and they will come to you, right? You don't even really have to
Yes.
search them out no more. You just have to search out their habitats. They'll come to you once you become habituated. It's real strange,
Well,
very
it's also
strange.
that frequency too, right? Don't you? It's like when you're on that frequency, it's like you're always on that frequency, in my opinion. Once you make that contact with them. So I think I don't know. This is fascinating, Charles. Oh my gosh, we have actually come to the end of the hour, and you and I could talk all night about this stuff. Okay, we really could. And so please, will you promise me you'll come back and hang out with me
I'll
again
be
here at
back.
Space Out Radio, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Tell the audience where they can find you. Tell everybody about your Facebook page and your YouTube channel, please. Oh,
Well, I
and
got
thank
a
you, Jennifer
Facebook group.
Patterson. I'm sorry. Thank you for that super sticker, Jennifer. I appreciate you so much.
I got
Okay, go
a
ahead. Tell everybody.
group called Catskill Mountain Bigfoot, and probably the most of my research is on. Um, I do have a YouTube channel though that has a lot of good videos on it as well. Uh, but there's no pictures, so there's more stuff on the Facebook group. And I'm gonna start a YouTube channel, a podcast, and I'm gonna try to do my thing. I think at the very least I can put out one of the most informational podcasts out there, right?
Yeah, you
If
could.
you were to watch it, you'd be able to go do some Bigfooting on your own, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
and
I mean, hey,
stuff out.
ask me to come on your show sometime. We'll do some collabs, okay? Because that would be freaking awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
on the Facebook group, until am able to put it, I do have the videos on a chip, but until I'm able to get access to an actual computer to plug the chip in to log this stuff onto the YouTube channel, on the Facebook pages, if you go down to the bottom and you'll see a chunk of videos way down at the bottom, probably the first chunk of videos. In that chunk of videos is there's Bigfoot vocalizations. They're doing their little clicking language, little frog clicking language, and there's amazing tree knocks. If you want to know what a tree knock sounds like, go on over there and check it out. I've never
Yes,
heard any of that good anywhere else.
it's
Yeah,
fascinating.
nice.
You have the best Facebook channel or Facebook group with all of your evidence, all of your explorations, all of your expedition, everything you're doing out there. You document it so well, and you're just a wealth of knowledge, Charles. So thank you so much for being here. You guys, please go subscribe to Catskill Mountain Bigfoot on YouTube, and as soon as if you get another channel going, I'll send everybody over to a new channel here too from Spaced Out Radio, Charles. Thank you so much for being here. Man, this has been so
Thank
fun.
you.
And I know the audience really enjoyed this tonight. So thank you. Please come back and see me soon. You promise?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Okay. Awesome, Charles. Have a great night. Okay. Well, and you be safe out there. Okay. Maybe I'll see you in the woods sometime. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See ya. All right, y'all. Wow, what a fantastic show tonight. That was so fun. Okay, you guys, please don't forget that right after this show, we've got After Hours getting ready to start in about 10 seconds over there. You guys, please come see me on my channel this week, The Cryptid Huntress on YouTube. I'm going to have my next show Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then I got Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then I'll be back here again next weekend. You guys have a wonderful week. Keep your heads on swivels, y'all, and have a wonderful week. And yeah, stay safe. I'll see y'all soon. Bye, y'all.